Thank you for the reminder. I was not. All right. I think for now, we're not going to install. Maybe I could do a quick yarn. I don't know if we'll use Axios or not. Let's just throw it in here just in case. All right. Yeah, so when we're talking about production deployments, just so you know, like deploying, that this is a term that's used, like you deploy your website, that's like pushing it, and there's some terminology, pushing to production. Like I said, this is going to be a part of your workflow. So yeah, you'll generally have like at least 3 environments. You might have more. There's kind of like the development environment. That's the one we've been working in this whole class. That's the one you can think about. That all we've worked with so far is just the development. There might be one called staging. So think of staging as kind of like a branch, or like an environment where you're kind of like throwing all of your commits together and you're like going to test it. Because, you know, in the real world, you're probably not just going to take all your code to master and like, you know, maybe you're probably going to want all like this separate environment called staging, which is kind of like this pre-level environment before you push to production. And staging's there just so you can really go through and you know, bang out any bugs or like see if there's anything wrong. So staging would, like if you had a queue, like a quality assurance team, and we'll talk about testing next week, I believe. Maybe we'll get into it this week. So you might have like a testing, like a QA team, you know, who they probably want to share their own database and go through the app and just kind of bang on it and make sure there's no bugs before you push it to production. So, and then, so you go through staging, which you'd make sure it's kind of gives it the green light, and then to production. So yeah, what you're going to do with production deploying, that's like when you're actually finally going to build out your app and push it to a publicly available server. So there's a couple options when, you know, doing this. These are just some. So if you're doing a static site, so what I mean by static site is like you essentially don't have a backend associated with it. It's just serving static content. You can use Netlify. That's what we're going to use today is Netlify, but there's other options, Surge, GitHub Pages. And these are going to be really easy to set up. This is super simple to use Netlify. I think Surge is pretty straightforward as well. If we're doing, if we want to do a site that has a server or a backend, we're going to need to do something a little more robust, a little more intense. And that's going to be something like Heroku, DigitalOcean, or AWS. For today, we're going to be using Heroku. Heroku's it's relatively straightforward. It's free, and it does work well with Rails. So let's just go in and yeah, build out a little app. I'm going to kind of go deviate from the notes as far as like the app we're building. That's really not what this lecture is about, but let's just go kind of maybe give you a little bit of a starting point if you do want to kind of continue this and have like a little resume page. Okay. So for this, I'm just going to do this right here. I'll just call this, let's just do this in my app.js right now. All right. So yeah, let's say you have a page where I want to make this about you. Work history. It's like old school. Okay. Paperboy. Gonna list all my jobs. That was my first job, Paperboy. I don't even know what year that was. I was like a third grader. So anyway, that's Paperboy. So this is just kind of what I mean by static content is, yeah, I don't have a backend. This is like going to be hard coded information. Come in here, just do a couple of these. So this is something, you know, you could actually worked at a restaurant for like 10 years when I was a kid. So you could come through and create like, you know, a little resume page. You could have like some contact info. Or whatever, any kind of page that you wanted that, you know, just had static content. So let's just kind of, I'm going to keep this simple for now. Let's go see how simple this is to push up to actually like a URL. So let's come here. I'm just going to, well, first of all, I just want to maybe check this, you know, make sure this is working. Cool. Sweet. So when we're, if we're using Netlify, let's go to Netlify. So I've tested this out. It's working. I want to push this up to Netlify. So Netlify. You're going to need to come in here and sign up. I just sign up with GitHub. I believe I'm already signed up. So add new site. So the option we're going to use is import an existing project. And then we're going to choose a provider. So these are kind of like the three main cloud repos you'll see. GitHub, that's the one we use. It's probably the most popular, but GitLab, it's funny. I've actually I've used all three of these. They're very much the same thing, very similar. But they're just a place to throw your repos. So we're going to use GitHub because that's it. Now, it's going to go through and it's going to list all my repositories. Now, I haven't created a repository for this project. So that's something I have to do. So I have to create a repo on GitHub or one of those other sites. So I'll just call this resume. Cool. Just grab that remote. Go ahead into your terminal. And just add that remote. Do a git add, git commit -m, and just do a git push origin master. So now I have this up on GitHub. Can go ahead on Netlify. I could go back to that page where, let's just go from the start. Let's go. So if I'm on Netlify, I'll just do add new site, import an existing project from GitHub, search my repos. What did I call that? Cool. Find that repo. Can pick a branch. I'm going to do obviously master. And some advanced settings. I don't really need to do anything with this. So, and then I can just click this deploy site. And now when I see this orange site deploy in progress. So that means it's actually like starting to build. I could go look on that. Can actually see like the log. So this is it. Like,
I noticed real quick, James, if you're even looking at that where it says like line 24 using PHP version, is everything we're doing in HTML being turned into PHP?
No, PHP is a back-end language. So yeah, I don't know if it's Netlify that's using PHP or if one of our libraries behind the scenes is using PHP. So, but yeah, it's not really getting, the HTML doesn't get converted to PHP. And yeah, because yeah, this Ruby 2.72, we're not using Ruby, right? Because we're just using React. We never did anything with Ruby. So I think this is just Netlify is doing stuff. Like there's like a Python version. I have no idea what it's doing with Python or Ruby or PHP. All right. So if we scroll down, I see this build command failed. Also kind of see this line. So It looks like it's this logo is defined but not used, because I could go back to my deploys and it's saying, hey, site deployed failed. And there's this big red failed here. And yeah, if this ever fails, once again, it's like if something just tells you it didn't work, that's really not useful. You really want to go explore. So you go through this deploy log and try to find that failure, just to make it a little easier to bug. So we see, yeah, right here, logo is defined, but it's never used. But it's kind of weird also because we tested it out and it was working. Like, this works, why is it failing? Well, there's like a setting where it doesn't like these unused imports. We could probably go into Netlify and change that to ignore it, but let's just go ahead and fix that. So I kind of want to show you that because you might see this failure on Netlify. And this one would maybe be pretty hard to find, right? If you didn't know about that or you didn't read the log. But that's what this one is. It's saying, hey, you cannot use unused imports. So we can save that. Do a git add, git commit. Import. I'm going to push up again. I'm pushing up to master. Let's go back to Netlify. Notice how just by pushing up to master, and you can see that commit right there, removed unused import. By pushing up to master, it's going to automatically trigger Netlify to start rebuilding the project. And even go click on that commit. And look at this deploy log. So it's kind of doing that same thing where it's building this app again. This is going to take a second. Let's see, did that work? Okay, cool. So now it is published. So that worked. And now I'm getting this URL right here where I can go click on that. And voila, that's like my website up on Netlify. So this is like up on the web. This is now publicly available. So really straightforward with Netlify. You just need to create a GitHub repo, hook that up. So yeah, if we were to come in here and wanting to make a change, maybe I have like my contact me via LinkedIn, and then you might want to like come in here. Let's do like a little animation or something. to show off our coding skills, like animation. Just have a div. Let's do a good old fashioned style. Let's just give this a width. 100 pixels. Give this a height. 300 pixels and a border. Let's do a good old DVD bouncing around. All right. So what I do, I could come in here, could, make changes to my code. Where's my DVD? Oh, that's my actual website. So that's obviously not going to be my website until I push to master. There could be my, my changes I'm making. So what I'm going to do is, let's do a little like use state review. So I could do a import use state. React. Let's do const. Let's create two pieces of state. Let's do a exposition. Set exposition. Let's use state. I'm just going to start that off as 0, and I'm going to do the same thing as with a Y position. I'm going to make this a position. Let's do relative. So top can be the Y position, and the left X position. Actually, let's have this start out in the middle. Let's see if that works. Because I have a div whose width is 300 by 300. So if I have the top at 150, that should push it down 150. And if I have the left at 150, that should push it 150 from the left of this div. And I might need to make this position absolute. So that's kind of center. So that's 150, and it's kind of like a corner. So it's like 150 from the top, 150 from the bottom, or from the left. Okay. So I want to do a little animation with JavaScript. So trying to think how I want to do this. Let's try, I guess maybe let's start this on our mount. So I'm going to do a use effect as well. So let's do our use effect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a, I'll just call this start animation. Start animation function. So we've seen the set timeout function before. Let me just stub out the what it looks like. So remember the set timeout, we give it a function to run like this is the function we give it to run after a certain amount of time. So this component would mount and then it would run this function right inside of here, which right now is just an anonymous function after 1 second. And we could just show this right now. So sometimes just throwing in logs can like make this a little more clear. Here we're in the set timeout callback function. Here we are for set timeout. And we could do like an after. I'm throwing in some console.logs. What do you think the order of the logs are going to be? What log would you expect to see first?
Here before set timeout.
This is going to be number 2. I would actually expect this one to be first, the before return, because this is like when this function runs, this function is going to return this HTML, but it's still not mounted to the DOM. So we're going to run this before return because our start animation is in our use effect, and we got this empty bracket. So this is going to run when our component mounts. So we should first see this before return, because this is going to log before our component mounts. And then when it mounts, then we'll log this here before set timeout. Then which one should we see next out of these two? We're going to see this one, the after set timeout. Because this code is going to run, remember our code goes from top to bottom, but this set timeout, it will like kind of just throw this function in like the computer's memory and be like, hey, run this function in 1 second. And what I mean by run that function, I run this function that's highlighted, run this in 1 second, but continue on. So like kind of take a note, hey, let's run this in 1 second, but keep on going with this start animation function. So then we'll log that. And let's just check, make sure that is actually what's happening. Why is this not, oh, I need to save that. So there's my before return. There's my here set timeout or before. Let me get rid of this here. Let's refresh. So we have the before return, before set timeout, after set timeout. And notice how this one kind of took a second. in set timeout callback function. So that's the order of those. Cool. But the set timeout only runs once. It runs once and then it's done. There's also another one that works very similar, like the same, except it runs. This is going to run like infinitely. And what this is going to do, now it's saying, hey, run this function every second. Did I not save that? I need to save that. So set interval. Cool. So inside of here, let's maybe do like a new state. Let's do like count. Interval. And set count. So here we could do a little count, set our count interval. So we could count that. Animation count 151. What are we doing wrong here?
Initial state is 150.
Oh, 150. Sweet. Let's do 0. Thank you. All right. So notice how it's not changing, but I'm still getting that called. This is probably one of those things where maybe I need to store this to a variable like new count equals. Let's see if this will do it. Count interval +1. This might be a little interesting. Might not do this in here. Let it's kind of working. Set count. We might be getting into some weird stuff with this set interval timeout, because it's like it's kind of like pretty sporadic, right? I wonder if it's going to like,
How come the set interval is running so fast? I thought it was set to run once a second.
yeah, it's like it's almost like it's remounting. There's some weird stuff going on. Yeah, because this is like because we could like switch this to like even 2 seconds. So now it waits 2 seconds. Well, now, because yeah, it was doing it when it was 1 second. It was always fun to work with intervals. Now I can't get it to go back to But yeah, what you were saying was right. It was definitely running more than once a second. But it's because now it's calling it every second, but our state isn't changing. It changes that first time, like it goes up to 1. So let's try doing this. Well, this is, I don't know. Let's try doing this in another use effect. Or we could try doing it in here. Let's do it here. So what I'm going to do I'm going to look for changes for count interval. Set interval. Yeah, it does not like this. I wonder if there's a thing of not wanting to put, because your use state does have like weird, it's not synchronous. So maybe throwing this in a unsynchronous set interval function definitely seems to be like screwing it up. Like it seems to work the first time. Like if I set interval to 100, like it works the first time it's calling it, but it does not like to reset that. So that's the issue. It works the first time and it's still calling the function, but if we console.log count interval in this function, like it's 1. Let's refresh. The first time it's 0. Well, now it's 0, but now it's logging 1. Yeah, this is interesting behavior. So it's saying 0 right now because it's 0 right before we log this, and then we set it, and then it's 1. But for some reason, and this might be like partly with use state, it's not actually updating it in this variable. So it's probably something to do what's called a closure, like this variable is not getting updated within the context of this callback function. Let's see if we can do that. Trying to think here. Okay. Let's try doing this. I'm going to do like a const tick function. And inside of this tick function, let's see if this fixes it. I will do this. This is maybe one place, if I was trying to do stuff with like set interval, I think I would probably just use a class component. definitely I've definitely had troubles with this before in functional components. I'm sure we could make it work, but because this kind of stuff definitely comes up more, because really I think part of the problem is this set count interval. It's kind of like this, it's really like an asynchronous function. Then we're using like this like use effect. So, but let's see if this works. All I did was I took that code and I wrapped it in a function called tick. So now I'm going to call this tick function every time. Let's see if that fixes it. Nope. It's just getting it up to 2. What time is it? I really want to figure this out. Let's take a break, because I just want to spend a little time Googling this, see if I can get it working. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. I think I'm getting close, but let's take a 10-minute break. If I can figure this out in 10 minutes, then I'll kind of show you what I did. If you want to, you can try to, let me Slack this out. You can also Google this as well if you want to kind of try looking at it. So I would Google something like, use state hook not updating in set intervals. But yeah, let's come back at 10:30 and we'll go from there. All right. Yeah, I don't know if anyone tried Googling that, but I did found an answer pretty quick on Stack Overflow. One way to fix it, and we'll look at this. Also found an article written by Dan Abramoff, who's like one of the lead Facebook React developers, kind of on his take or his solution. So you're not going to get a better blog than, written from some guy who's actually, writing, whose job it is to, write React, like create new features in React, who actually, I think he was kind of lead in development of React hooks. So we can look at these two things. But first, and I'm going to select this one out too. Just want to just briefly talk about what a closure is, because it's kind of what's going. The issue here is, it's just really not getting, the closure is not really like what we expect it to be. So when we did our set timeout, and let me just do this, well, right here. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to like comment this out, and just do a set timeout here. Just to kind of briefly just describe what a closure is. I think closures are something you're going to have to like kind of read about a couple times before it kind of sinks in. But you could do like a console.log x. Let's say I have some variable like let x equal 1 here. And then in my set timeout, I'm passing it a call back function that is using this variable x. Now, this code's going to run, and it's it's a little special that actually I can access this x variable in a callback function. There's something kind of not magical, but there's something kind of nice going on here. Like it's called a closure. This is something that like JavaScript, the people who read JavaScript, they had to like write this functionality to make this even be able to work. If your language doesn't have closures, then you cannot do that. And JavaScript, is a very asynchronous callback language, so it's very good that this does work in JavaScript. So, because x is going to be defined inside of here. And what we were like seeing with this set interval, since this is kind of being run in, this context, of set interval, like it was working the first time, but for the rest of them, it was not working. So like that, it didn't have access to that variable. But let's go through and look at a fix for this. All right, so something I can do with this use state hook, instead of throwing it this trying to grab this count interval here. So what's happening is once it gets to the second and the third, it's just referencing that old value. So what I can do actually with the set any set function from my use state hook, I can pass it a function. And what this function is going to have access to is, or what I can give this function is, the prev state. I don't have to call this prev state or previous, I could call it previous state, misspelled. I could call it prev state. I could call it prev. It doesn't matter what the name is. This is just an anonymous function, but that's what this is going to be. It's going to be what was the previous state. So I can then grab that previous state and add 1. Go back here to my React app. Let's refresh. And there we go. Now it's counting up every 10 seconds. Well, sorry, it's incrementing that every second. Cool. Yeah, there was another. I don't know if he had that solution in here, but with this article, he shows how to make a custom hook, that does this, or he kind of shows an example with how you could do this here. Where I'm just trying to find like the more finished version of it, where he's using a ref and there's with the use ref hook. So this is just a way you can like save values as a reference. So what he does here is he creates this save callback, which is going to have this current key, which will be initially null. So this creates an object with a current key, and it's called save callback. And then he has the callback function, which is just incrementing the count by 1. And then in the use effect, he sets that current key in the save callback from the use hook to the callback function. So now he has a reference to that callback function. And then in the use effect, you can do the tick function, which is called every second. And then that's going to call that saved callback.current, because that's just a reference to that function. And then you just call that, which then sets the state. So if we look at the example with the ref, so we have our count and set count, use state is 0, and then that use ref save callback reference. So there's just a simple callback function where you're setting the count, just incrementing it by 1. And then you're using the save callback from the use ref hook, setting the current value to this function. And then in the use effect, just defining the tick function inside of there, which just calls the callback. And then you set that. You have the set interval where you pass it the tick function, call it every second. And then there's this extra step with the use effect. What's going on here is, since the set interval it's kind of like this infinite loop. Remember with the use effect, if we return a function from the use effect, that's going to be run when the component unmounts. So this is an added step of, hey, if I have this set interval running, I'm going to want to like quit this when the component unmounts. And the clear interval is a function for the set interval that will remove that, like that function from continuing to be called. And then you can take all of this logic and I'll slack this out. Let's just do another demo with this because this is a nice little custom hook just to kind of look at. So here's the like counter component. But you know, this, I think this can be a little, there's a lot of code here. Maybe it's a little confusing. So, you know, this would be a good one to like create your own custom hook. And that's what's here. So let's just take this hook and make it into its own file. So this would be use interval. So this one, we need to give it a function. Should I also probably maybe change this up and give it a time to make this a little more reusable. So we could give this function a callback and then like a time, or maybe I could call that interval, doesn't really matter. Like how often do I want this callback to run? Set that in my interval. There we go. So let's look at this one work. So now we have our use interval hook. So remember, this is just this needs a callback. So I need to pass this a function and a time. So here's what this is saying. I'm gonna, when I use this, I'll give it a function to run at a given interval. So let's just do like another one. Let's just say like, let's just call this, you know, whatever, like y. Oh no, we have y. Let's do like count 1. Set count 1. Actually, what am I going to do? Yeah, let's have the set count and count 1 and set count 1. That'll still be 0. Let's see if this works. I could have a const, you know, update count 1. Set count 1. +1. I'm not doing the callback function where I'm using the previous state. I'm actually just using this variable here. So let's see if we can get it to work without doing this, just to kind of like experiment a little. I wonder if I just need to, well, let's try this. So then I'm going to do my const. Let's try using this. Just want to import my use interval hook from use interval. And here, I'll just call this in my use effects. So when this component mounts, I'll actually use this Or this might not work because I'm using it in a function. Let me see here. So, right, let's try this because this is not going to work because I'm using my use interval hook. Why do you think I don't think this is going to work?
Hooks need to be at the top level.
Yeah, hooks need to be at the top level. I'm using this in a callback. Like I'm using this in a function. I'm actually using this in a callback function from my useEffects. So I should probably see an error. Yeah, use interval cannot be used inside a callback. So let's try running this right here at the top level. Use interval, so I give it my callback function, which is this function right here, and then the time. And then also what I want to do is, let's also log this count so we can see if it's updating or not. So I called that variable count1. Count1. So use ref, use effect are not defined. So I need to go into my custom hook, import those, import use effect and use ref. React. And I also need to export default, this export default, use interval. So we're actually exporting that hook. Can I access update one, count one before initialization? This is where this is a little weird. I wonder how he uses this. So I'm trying to use this function before I'm initialized it. So let's just move this down. Let's define the function and then use it. There we go. So we've seen
That's incrementing kind of weird in like sets of two.
Oh, that one is, yeah, you're right. Why would that be doing that? It wasn't doing that before, right? That just started to happen. I wonder if this messed that up. Yeah, that is messing it up. Because now that's working. If I have this interval there. Wait, what? Now it's working. I'm not sure how we got there, but yeah, that was totally broken. It might be, so something that might be going on. This one I'm not clearing. And this might have somehow happened with the fresh, the like hot reloading, is that, and just to kind of iterate what this is doing again. So right here, we're going to, so this interval, like this is going to run every second. It's going to run this function every second. So that's kind of like a little bit of an infinite loop, right? So if you want to stop that from happening, like just maybe, you know, you want this to stop if like, you know, after 60 iterations or something, you can call this clear interval function and that will stop it. So with this use interval hook, we are kind of handling that case of, you know, when the component amounts to stop it. Maybe what happened is like when we did the like the hot reloading, like it reloaded it. Like there's some like efficiency stuff it's doing when it's doing like the hot reloading. So maybe it didn't remove that interval. So then there was like two of them in place. I think that's because it's working. But I came in here, I don't know, let's see if I like, I don't know, maybe make a change. Yeah, that's what's going on. See how like I make a change and now it's doubling it because now I have two of those intervals in there. So what kind of like what they did. Let's see if we can fix that. But so let's move this set interval function into our use effect. Let's tick. Oh wait, we have tick. I'm going to move tick inside of here in my use effect. And then I can have this set interval. And then yeah, I can set that set interval to a just a variable. Let me do that as a callback. I can just throw in tick. Do that every 1,000 seconds. Store this to like a, you know, variable. They call it ID. We could call like, I guess we can just call it ID as well. And then what I can do, remember with the use effect, we can give it a function that gets called on like amount. And I need to return this function. And then I could clear interval. Pass the reference to that interval. So let's refresh. So our counts are the same. But yeah, what was breaking it was the fresh, like the live reloading. So if I come in here, I don't know if this is going to fix it. So let's make a change. I save it. Oh wait, this is probably not. I'm not even using that function anymore. Make a change. Cool. So that like throwing, see how throwing that set interval or that this return where we clear the interval, that is clearing it. I think if I don't have that, make a change. Then it starts to, it like reloads it, but it doesn't clear the interval. So every time I change stuff, it's just going to add a new one of those intervals on there. But if I have that, it does. So this is a nice little like a you know, a good example, because we don't use this too often, the return function on the use effect. But here's a good like working example of why you would want that. I want to clear this, when my component mounts or like when I refresh this, I want to remove this, interval I have going on. Cool. Let's keep going. This is a nice little React review, and then we'll move on to pushing up to Heroku. But I think this is a good little review. So let's say now I want to update my X and Y position. I mean, we could probably do it right here. Let's see if this works. Set X position. We might run into the same issue here. Let's just try this. So in this tick function, let's see if I do my X position +1, I might get into that same issue where it doesn't actually change.
So you just set your Y position to X position +1.
Cool. Y position +1. Yeah, once again, it moves down that first step. It's kind of doing the same thing. So I would need to do that. Let's try doing this previous state +1. That's a little slow. Let's change it by 10. There we go. Now that's moving every second. Another way maybe I could do this, just reviewing some use effect stuff. Let's say I had another use effect. And let's say this use effect, what I'm going to have, this is going to listen to that count interval. So now how this is going to work is every time my count interval changes, this use effect should be called. So this could be another way I could do it. Let's see if this works. And there's my DVD. Now this one, I bet I don't need to do this pre-state thing. I bet you I could just probably grab, let's do my Y position +1. Let's see if that works. Oh, no, I need Y. Let's do it a little bigger. So a little confusing, right? Like Y position +5 works here, but if I do it in my tick function, that would not work. So this is where like the use state can get a little tricky, especially when you're using things like set interval and asynchronous stuff. And I could do my set X position +5. Cool. Now this isn't going to stay in the box because we would need to do some logic to like handle that, but I could do that really quick. This is just a little, what I'm going to do for this, let's just do, I'm going to call this like delta y. Let's just call it dy for short. So this is going to be how much I'm going to change y by. So like I'm changing it by 5. So I'm going to have this as state as well. And this is how much I'm going to change x by dx. So instead of changing this by this hard-coded number 5, I've created some state. So I'm going to change that by dy dx. So this should just do the same thing. Right now, I've just created 2 variables and set them both equal to +5. So we're doing the same thing. But what I can do with this is and let's just do this with another use effect just to show we can have multiple use effects. I could check this. I could say like if y position. So if this is going to not be like exact, let's just, I don't know, what would it be? Probably like 280. Because my div is like 300. So if my y position is greater than 280, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set dy to -5. And this one I'm only going to run when my x position changes or my y position changes. Okay, set y position. So I'm going to move it back a little, and then I'm going to set dy to -5. So what this should do is once my y position gets to 270, now this is my dy is going to be negative. So when we set the y position, then we're going to be subtracting 5. I could do another, like, if my x position is less than, let's just say if it's less than 5, or my y position. And we could do the same thing for my x position. Set dx. Open and set dx. See if this works. So what's happening is every time my count changes, I'm changing my XY. Every time that changes, I'm checking to see, hey, is it greater than 280? So hopefully once it gets to 280, then, it should make that dx and dy negative. So that should like bounce it up. It's almost working, but you kind of like, I think I probably need to change one of these. I'm not quite sure, but we're getting close. And to speed this up, if this is like super slow, what I can do is I can just change my interval. So it's not every second. I can make it like every 60 milliseconds. So yeah, it looks like we're getting like caught. So I just have like a little logic error.
James, is it because like when you're doing a use effect, it's going to hit whatever if statement it meets first and then do that and then not move on?
Yeah, so that's a good question or good point. So since I have, these are all if statements, like 4 separate if statements. So it actually is going to check all of these because it's not an if else. So this is one like separate statement. So these will all run. Yeah, if I had an if, else, then it would only run one. But since these are 4 if statements, it will check all of them. It might be happening here. Let's just make this pretty dramatic. 250, 250. No, it's there. It's 250. It's getting caught up because it starts to go left for a second. I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on this. But I'll let you, maybe I'll let you figure that one out. I think there's just like maybe you want to do this in here, but we're getting close to it. This is like, this example is, it's so much easier to do in a class component, but I think it's good to like kind of really doing some more complicated stuff with our use state and use effect. Just trying to compare these values. It's like this damn call, like, yeah, because I think it looks like, I don't know, it's just that Y position is not getting set. Y position is less than 5. Yeah, I have. Do I just have some like reverse logic going on somewhere? Cool. Anyway, let's just kind of leave it like this for a second. So just going back to Netlify, if I didn't like, say I don't want this change up to master because I don't want to like have this code showing on my actual website. So here's my actual website on Netlify. You know, maybe this is a work in progress and I don't want to show this. What could I do you think? But I want to like push it up to GitHub.
Could you like put it in a branch?
Yeah, that's what we could do. We could put it into a branch, which I probably should have done at the start, but I'm going to commit this anyway. I'm going to commit on master because I kind of have to, because I was doing the work on master. Yeah, then I could do a get checkout -b. Let's just call this DVD. And if I go to Netlify, that's not doing it. I could also stop auto publishing, but we'll leave that there for now. So we can just use branches. All right. So yeah, there's a little bit of a review on hooks on this set and little talking about set interval. I'm gonna fix this during a break, but so yeah, you could use this as far as Netlify is concerned. You could use this as you know, a good way to do like a resume. You can still do like API calls to like a database, to someone else's database. That's fine. It's not like you could use like a rapid API database, grab some data from there and like throw it on here. It's not to say you can't use servers. You just can't host your own server with this Netlify. So let's do that really quick. What time is it? Let's just get a Rails project set up and then we'll take a break to show you how to do a Rails app. So let's go ahead. I'm going to CD back. Okay. So just in you know, your week 9 directory, let's create a Rails Rails new, and let's do this. Let's call this Heroku W21. Make sure you do this PostgreSQL. It's not going to work if you don't. Or the way I'm showing you like this, we do need to use the PostgreSQL flag here. All right, so we can CD into there. And I'm going to create React app client. So we'll just kind of build this one from scratch. Now for the way I'm showing you how to do this, you will want that create React app folder name to be client inside of your Rails project. Let's create, just so we can actually have some data. Let's do a Rails G model thing that has a name. I don't know if we'll get to Cloudinary today. I kind of do want to show a Cloudinary example. So let's give it like, you know, down the road, maybe we'll be able to add like an image URL. So instead of calling this thing, maybe let's do like a meme. Like a meme website. Maybe I'll have like a title, and yeah, let's give a meme a title and a image URL. So there's my model. Let's also do a Rails G controller API/memes for this. And I'm going to step into my console and just create some memes just so we have some data. So we'll do a meme dot create title. One image URL. Let's do this as a to-do. Oh, my database doesn't exist. I need to do a Rails DB create and a DB migrate to create my database, and then to run that migration. Rails. So now I can step into my console again and create a meme. Create two memes. Okay. So that's me stepping into my console and creating some stuff into my database. And I'm creating this in my development database. I'm also going to do another thing. So this is just for like demo. I want to grab Baker gem. I'm going to open this up in code. Get rid of that use interval. All right. So just for demo's sakes, I'm taking this Faker gem and I'm going to throw it in this development and test branch. And I can go to my seeds file. Require Faker. Just do meme dot create title. Let's just do K-pop. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. I just want to do like a Faker gem. And yeah, as far as my image URL, I'm just going to say to do for now. I'm not so concerned about that. So just find something in Faker, just wanting to use Faker to create some fake data and just create a seeds file. So now I can do a Rails DB seed. Oh, I need to run bundle. Because since I added that gem to my gem file, then I can run my Rails DB seed. I could step into my console and do like a meme.all. So I have those two memes I created in my console, and I have the two memes that I created with my seeds file. Cool. And I could cd into clients. Let's do a yarn add Axios. I should just split this up into a new window. Cool. Let's see, let's just do a couple more setup steps. So we have this open up in code. Let's just go to our routes. Let's do one route for this. Let's do a namespace API do end. A get memes. Go to my memes controller, to my index method.
Need a colon after 2.
I do, thank you. All right, and then in my memes controller, we can just do our index method. So, oh. I'm just going to keep this pretty basic for now, just so it's easy to test. Just doing this like as simple as possible, where we have a back end, and then we'll have a front end where we can grab the data. Cool. And let's just do this, and let's go to our client. So to our like app.js. Let's go ahead. Well, actually, let's just do it. Let's do a memes.js file. Maybe we'll do some more with this later, but let's do a import use state use effect from React memes. So we'll have our const memes, set memes. So we'll just do our Axios call here. Async. So let's do a try. Catch. And right here, we'll do our Axios call. So let response equal Axios. Auto importing that. So import Axios. Axios. Get /API/memes. Set memes to be res.data. Inside of here, we can just do a pretty basic JSX right here. So for here, I'm just going to say memes and then do a paragraph JSON.stringify. Since we are building this from scratch, there's one thing I need to do in my package.json to make this actually, to make this work with my server. Is in my package.json, I need to set up that proxy. Localhost http://localhost 3000. Oh wait, it's 3001, right? Because I'm going to have it set up so I'm running my Rails server on 3001, so it'll use that. If I don't have that, it'll just by default use the localhost 3000. All right, so added that. My memes.js, it's just probably as simple as I can make it, where I'm doing my Axios call to get the data. Then I set the data, and then I'm just stringifying it. So let's actually use this now. I'm going to get rid of all of this crap inside of here. Just render my memes component. Let's get rid of this unused import. All right. Let's just test this out. Cool. So we have just a pretty basic app, but we do have a database. We have a model. We can store stuff to our database, and then on our React end, we grab that from the database. Now, we haven't done anything as far as like setting up to push this to production. So this is just what we've been doing. So I think let's take a break, because then once we get back, we can actually start with getting this set up for production. So let's just come back at 11:40. Does anyone need any of this, like any of the files? I can just Slack them out if you do.
Yes, please.
Did you say which file?
Oh, well, never mind. If you're just pushing it up to GitHub, that's good enough for me. I don't know if I'll be following exactly along. But I might, like, I'm thinking I want to follow along with the Heroku part.
You can always, for that, you can just, if you want to follow along with the Heroku part, you can just take a any app that you have, any Rails React app that you have that's working. If you want to do that, the step should be
That
this.
sounds fine.
What?
That's fine for me.
Cool. Okay. So let's get started. Just during break, I did figure out the issue. With our awesome DVD animation. The one thing I was doing wrong with the DV with this animation is down here where I was checking like the X position. I just have this as like set DY. So it wasn't setting the right variable. And that was it. So also I just was messing around and added some other things here, but if you want, I'll slack that out. Silly little DVD thing. But I also made it dynamic so you can go in and change the size of the screen. And it still works. There's our awesome. So here's your resume. You could have an awesome DVD feature that everyone will want to hire, because that's pretty cool. So let's get back though to pushing to production. And well, also let's just say like, I want to push this now to Netlify. That's pretty easy. I'd make a change, I would check it, and I would push to master. So I could do a get. So I'm on a different branch. I could do a get checkout master. Just a little get review. So what I could do is I could merge the DVD branch onto my master branch just in Git. This is on my local machine. Now my master branch on my local machine is up to date. Push that to origin. Master. So that's now pushing up to GitHub on that DVD app we were doing, or the resume one. If I went back to Netlify, refresh that. Now I have another another build in progress. So yeah, Netlify is like really straightforward. But let's go back to our Rails app. I'm just gonna start this up. CD into client or yarn start. Yeah, if you want to follow along, you can, as far as Heroku goes, you could just pick any of the apps you have that are working. Like any Rails app that has React, you know, that React client folder. You could just follow along with one of those apps, or you could just do it with this app. But I just wanted to keep this as simple as I could and just kind of start from scratch, just so we can see what are the specific steps we need for Heroku. All right. And actually, I want to Slack this out as well, because I do have a Trello board. That kind of has these steps. I wonder if I'm going to get this there with my new ship. Well, okay, well, we'll check it out. So this can be like a little bit of a cheat sheet if you're for pushing up to Heroku. But let's just go ahead and do these steps and we'll kind of go through them. So sweet. So let's go ahead. And I'm also going to do, before we do this, I'm just going to commit. I haven't committed yet. And also I want to put, like, if I do a get remote, I'm just going to do this I haven't created a GitHub repo for this yet. So I just want to make that point clear, because I'm actually, I'm going to keep it like that for a second, just so we can see the steps without GitHub. And just to kind of show we actually don't need GitHub for this. But let's go through these steps. So if you're ready to push your project to Heroku or up to a server, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new controller. So Rails G, not Git G, Rails G controller static. Now I'm not going to namespace this with the API. I'm going to just do a skip route so we don't generate any routes for this. Cool. So now I have a static controller. Let's close this. Keep. This is the one I want. Okay, yeah. So let's go to our static controller. Now, this is a step people mess up all the time. When we created this Rails project, we used the -- API flag. So that's saying, hey, we only want to use this app for, API calls. Well, we actually need one call that's actually going to render some HTML. So, and I threw this out in Slack, and I'm just going to comment this out so we can kind of see the difference. So what I'm going to do is I need to require the Rails application controller. And now I need to have this static controller inherit from that. And do this layout equals false. And then I have this index method, because this index is going to actually render a file. And it's eventually going to be this public HTML file. Now, if I were to look in my app, and I would go look at this public folder, I don't have a index.html in here. We don't have that yet. This index.html, we're going to build with our client. So it's not in here yet, but it will be when we push this to Heroku. And we'll kind of look at that. But that's what I do here. I have this static controller. I need to specifically say I want to extend from this application, the Rails application controller, not this particular file. So we can render an actual HTML page.
If our app that we're using already has an index.html file in public, is that bad?
Yes.
I think that you probably did the same thing I did, where if you're looking at the public under client, then that has stuff built, but you need the public under the app.
Oh, that is what I did. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. This is actually, what we're going to, well, I mean, this will get, it's a little more complicated, but yeah, we'll eventually take this index HTML page and throw it in here. But we're gonna build it out. So cool. Yeah, because if yours did have a public HTML in your actual Rails app, that probably meant you forgot the API flag, which would then break for other reasons. That's how we're doing this. Cool. So we do that step, and then now at the routes. Now this needs to go at the bottom of this folder or of this file. We're going to do a get our other, and this is going to go to our that static index method. And what this is going to do is, if anyone goes to they go to our website, let's say our website is Google www.google, like, and they go to like slash something, whatever, it's still going to take them to this index method. Unless they hit, if they went to like Google/API/memes, then that would take them to that method. But this is kind of like, hey, catch any other routes and just take them to the index page. So when we say our app is like a single page application, this is like the one page we're giving them back, is this index page. Cool. All right. Now that's set up. So the next step we're going to do is, now this is going to be in our Rails directory. So make sure you're in your Rails directory. I'm going to do a npm init, and I'm going to do this -y flag, which is just essentially going to answer yes to all the default. It's going to give me all the default values for this. So what this does is this creates a package.json file in our Rails directory. So now we're going to have two package.jsons. We have a package.json in our client. Now this should have, you know, this is like your React one. This is going to have all your client libraries. But then we also have this package.json in our Rails project. And what we want to throw in here is some scripts. I'm going to Slack these out.
And was that npm init?
Yeah, npm init. And then I did a -y. And yeah, all that did is it just kind of creates this stubbed out package.json folder. Let's just look at this one script we have in here that just says test, and all it does is echo error no test specified and exit one. If I come in here and run like yarn test, see how it echoes no test specifies and then it exits with code 1. So what we can do with the scripts section of our package.json is we can actually throw in scripts. Like I can run yarn run and then the name of the script, like I ran yarn run test, and it just did that. So what I just slacked out is some new scripts. I can just like delete what's in here. Oh. I did slack that out, right? Those scripts, and I could throw them in here. Why did that? Oh, forgot this closing bracket. Okay, or sorry, that closing quote. So now we have some scripts in here. Now I'm not going to do this, but I could go in and run like yarn run build. And what yarn run build would do, it's like me typing in the terminal cd into client and npm install. And then it's giving this flag. So it's like cd into client, npm install. I bet you if I look in here, there's not an install, but it's what, oh, sorry. What does npm install? What that's going to do is that's kind of like a yarn add or like running yarn. So that's going to go into my client folder. It's going to run yarn. That's only going to do it for dev. And then we run build, which actually runs this command build, React scripts build, which does its own thing. But just kind of, I mean, you don't really have to totally get what's going on here, but it's essentially just typing into the terminal this command, which is going to build this project. There's also a deploy. So that's just going to copy what's in. So after we're going to build our project, and then we're going to copy what's in that project into that public folder. And that's where we're going to get that index.html page. Just kind of want to show like, but this is all going to happen behind the scenes. These commands, we're going to see these runs when we push up to Heroku.
Isn't NPM like an equivalent program type thing to Yarn? I don't even know if Yarn's called a program, but like, isn't that the alternative to installing a whole bunch of stuff in React?
Yeah. So yeah, this could be like, and MP, like I could say, and Yarn. Because npm install does the same thing as like Yarn. When you run Yarn, it would do the same thing. So yeah, there's like just these, they're like CLI tools.
So have we installed something to be able to say Yarn, whatever, or could I equally just say npm install and I don't have to like do anything before that?
Yeah, you could, like when you clone down a project, like a React project, instead of running Yarn, you could run npm install and it would work. So yeah, they're like the same, similar. They're not the same obviously, but they're very similar. All right. But yeah, just for setup, just go ahead, copy these. A lot of the stuff, it is just going to be copy and paste. I more just wanted to like, I think the bigger takeaway here, it's not exactly what these are exactly doing. It's more you can, in your package JSON, you can, in your scripts folder, you can write your own scripts to run terminal commands. We're going to do another thing. So this is going to be in our Rails app. So let's just do this in terminal. So I'm going to create at the root level of my Rails app a proc file. So touch proc file, that just creates a file called proc file in here. There it is. You could also just, do this in VS Code. A new file, call it proc file. I'm just going to throw this in here and throw this in Slack, what we're going to paste inside of here. Cool. So right here, and let's just kind of review what we did as far as in VS Code. We created a package.json, added the scripts, we added this proc file, we added that one line of code in. We created a static controller that's like where we require the Rails application controller, and we inherit from that, create that one index method, create a route for that at the bottom. And I'll just the reason this needs to go out bottom, if I put this at the top, because this is like, it's going to match a lot of different routes. So if I put this at the top, I would never be able to hit any of my API calls because this would like match all of those first. So this is kind of like the last thing we want to throw in there. And then we have our static controller. Oh, this is just a test file. Cool. So that's really all, like, I'm kind of taking some time, but that's really all we need to do as far as like setting up our VS Code. Now let's go into Heroku and get Heroku set up. Now, some of this stuff is going to be like a one-time thing. So let's go to Heroku. Did I spell that right? and you're gonna sign up. So sign up, your role, you can kind of pick whatever, it's not a huge deal. I'd select Ruby for your primary language. Tell them US. I actually might have to do this, install the CLI tool. We'll see. Let's give you a second to get that set up though. Okay, so I'm going to, since I already have an account, I'll log in. Yeah, I just need to delete this one. Okay, so once you're logged in, what we need to do is we need to install the Heroku CLI tool. You only have to do this once, but let's go ahead and do that. I actually think I have to install this. I don't know if I have it on this computer. So I select that out, see if that takes us to where we need to go. Oh, so I guess it's right here. Brew tap Heroku brew install. Just run this command. Like that one out. Okay, let's kind of wait a second. Sometimes the brew stuff can take a second, depending on if it's updated or not. But I guess actually, if that's still running, that's fine. Because what we can do is on Heroku, what we're going to do. So go back to your Heroku page. I want to come here and I want to create a new app. So give this a name. I would just probably name this whatever you called your project. I can't remember what I called it. Heroku W21. create this app. Now we're not going to follow the steps they give us. We're not going to follow them exactly. So, but there are some things we do want to do here. So we are CD'd into our project, and we have a Git repo. We don't have a GitHub repo, right? But we have a Git repo, so I don't need to do the Git in it. But what I'm going to do, in your terminal. Now, you would need this command to have successfully worked to run this, the brew tap Heroku and brew install Heroku. So what I can now do is I can run this Heroku Login command. So this is going to say press any key to open up the browser. So I'll type any key, and it's going to open up this login on your browser. So I'm going to click login, and now I can close this and return to your CLI. It should now be logged in. So if I go back to my terminal, I'm like logged in to my account. Cool. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to add a remote to my project. So we already have a GitHub, we already have a Git repo, but now I'm going to add a remote. So it's Heroku git remote -a for add, and then this name. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. So now if I do a git remote -v, I have a remote called Heroku. That's pointing to that repo on Heroku. So once again, I'm kind of admitting GitHub from now, just like we're doing nothing. We don't have anything going on with GitHub. But now I have another, like a cloud repository or a remote that I've called Heroku. Cool. So I'm going to run these three, throw these three commands in Slack. So we have, with this project, we have a React app, which is behind the scenes, like using Node. And then we have a, Rails app, which is, a Ruby app. So we need to tell Heroku the order in which to build these projects, because it doesn't know that's what we're doing. So those are the three commands that I just threw out in Slack. So we're going to clear this, how it, like the default way it's building. And then we're going to say, hey, build that React stuff first. And then this other command, then it'll say, hey, then build the Rails stuff second. So. Cool. So I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to commit. Let's just do a git status. So I've made some changes. So let's do a git add, git commit -m. Just call this, Heroku setup. But let's go through and just do so we made some changes. I'm actually ready to push. But something I should always do before I push is especially when it comes to Heroku, because it takes like a couple minutes to build, is I want to make sure my app is working. Like I just want to test it. Like we made some changes. Definitely should test it. Cool. Doesn't seem broken or anything. Our console's looking clear too, so no warnings. Looking good. Okay. So yeah, if I do a git status, yeah, I'm ready to push. So I'm curious. I'm not sure if this is going to work. There's definitely an issue that I had with my last computer and that you might have. I'm not sure, but let's just try pushing and see if it breaks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a get push origin, not origin, Heroku. Because if I do a get remote -v, it's called Heroku. So I want to do a get push. What remote am I pushing to? I'm pushing to Heroku. And which branch do I want to push? I want to push the master branch. And there we go. And you need to be logged in. You need to do that Heroku login. Like that's kind of how you're doing some of that authentication stuff. It's not like you can just push to a repository on Heroku. Now we're doing this. It's using the build packs. It's going to build the Node.js stuff and then the Ruby. So a Node.js app was detected. There's the build. See, like it's running that build command, and then it's running that script we had in there, npm build deploy. So now it's actually going through and building that. Build succeeded. Okay. So fail to install gems via bundler. So I'm getting this error. The add platform x86 Linux and try again. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So yeah, I guess I just need to like add this in the setup. I thought maybe with the M1 chip, I want to get this error, but let's fix this error. So you will need to do this once for each project, but I'll just throw this out in Slack. And this is also like in that Trello card I sent out. This instruction is just in one of the comments. So if you get that x86-64 error, these are what we're going to do. And that was the error we got. So let's go ahead and run these commands. Okay, and now we can try doing the get push Heroku master. See, there's that one command, cd into client npm install. So it's kind of running those scripts that we threw in our package.json, telling it how to build it. See how now it's installing, like now it's on the Ruby section. We can kind of see, this is like when we first create like a Rails app, like it's installing all of these, the Rails packages and our gems. So what it's doing, it's like it's building this app on, you know, the Heroku server. And then down here, I see this HTTPS Heroku W20. So I can come in here. That's like the URL. Sweet. So there's my memes. Let's inspect. So if I inspect, I'm getting a 500 error. And I don't have any memes, and I'm hitting that error in get memes. So like an error occurred. So I can look at my Rails server. I don't see an error inside of here. Well, why don't I see an error inside of here? Any ideas?
It's because that's just running on Heroku. It's not running on your server.
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah, the point. So now I have like two different versions of this app. This one is this server that I'm running here. This is like on my computer. It's the same thing with the database. That the database where I created those 4 memes, those are living on the database in my computer. So yeah, they're now 2 different servers. They're 2 different environments. That's kind of what we mean when we're like talking about environments. Different environments, different databases, different stuff. So how do I see, you know, how do I go in and like look at, you know, these errors? Well, I can come in here and I can use this CLI tool, like Heroku. Oh, crap, I can't remember. Is it logs? Okay, so if I run Heroku Logs, now once again, I need to be logged in. Now I can see the logs from my server on Heroku. So if you run into errors in your database or like on your production, you need to go look at your logs to kind of go try to see what's going on. I mean, this was from the first fail when I had that x86 error. So that's what that one is. So that's not actually the error. Let's go see if we can like find that. Like I should see like a GET request. So here we go. Here's like the GET request API memes. There's that 500 error. Like I can come down here and there we go. There's a better error. Undefined table relation memes does not exist. So that's the error. Just kind of wanted to show finding that error. I had to go into my Heroku logs to see, to find that error. Cool. Let's also see if we can see that like initial get. I think here's the initial like get slash. That's like when I first typed in like the URL. And that was a status 200. And it's getting like the JS and the CSS pages. So, but yeah, that API call is failing because we don't have this table created. So something we need to do with Heroku is I need to run a migration. I actually don't need to, my database is created. I don't have to like create my database, but I do need to run my migration. So Heroku Run Rails DB migrate. So now that's running the migration on my Heroku server. So that's creating that table in my production app. And there we go, create table memes. So let's clear this, let's refresh. So it's an empty array, but now it's working, right? Because I don't have anything in my database on my server. Now, if I go to localhost 3000, that's my development database. That does have information. But on my server, that doesn't have any. And once again, I could probably do a Heroku Logs. See if I can find that successful. Oh, it looks like it's even showing the Rails DB migrate. And there we go. Now my get API memes, that's status is 200. So that was successful. Cool. So if I want to add stuff to my database, let's try running my seeds file, Heroku Run Rails DB seeds. Now I'm getting an error on that. Oh, because I said seeds, Rails run DB seed. Let's run the right command. All right. So now I'm getting a different error. And I did this one on purpose because I kind of want to show what's going on here. So it cannot load such file faker. Well, I did faker on my development branch. So why isn't it working on production? Well, no, when I did my gem file, I put the faker gem only in this in this section, group development and test. So I have faker available to me only in my development and test. I don't have it in my production. So a couple of reasons I might. So why might I put faker, or why wouldn't I just put all of my gems? Like why kind of make these different distinctions? Like maybe when I put, like always just put faker up here. Like if I put, what I'm trying to say, if I put faker right here, then I could have done a Rails DB seed and faker would have worked. But by putting it in this group, now in Heroku, it's not going to have that gem. And so the point here, it's if you want to use faker in production, that's fine. Just throw faker there. But also at the same time, does it make sense really to have fake data in a production project? Probably not for most apps, right? Unless you're just demoing something and it's just, you want it available, but what you might want to do for your portfolio projects. But you probably don't want fake data in a production database. You probably want it to be real data. But feel free to throw that in there if you want. Okay, so let's say, because if I wanted to do that, I would have to save it. I'd have to do a git add. I'd have to push back up to Heroku. Would have to rebuild. So let's say I want to just come into my production database and add some stuff. So what I can do is I can do a Heroku Run Rails C. Now what this is doing is this is running like Rails C, but it's running it in the context of my Heroku app. Like, right, I can step in to my, if I run Rails C and do like a meme, that's in the context of my development app. But if I do Heroku Run Rails C, like I'm now interacting with that app on Heroku. So if I do a meme.all, there's the empty array. So I can do a meme.create. Production meme 1. Image URL. Just leave that null. So I'm doing meme.create. So this is actually going to create the memes in my production database. So now I should be able, so I'm on my Heroku app, I should be able to refresh. There they are. And yeah, this URL, like I could throw that out in Slack and you would see this data. Does this, hopefully, like, I think it can, like, it's kind of weird when you talk about different environments until like after you've actually done it and seen this. So hopefully now, like the difference between like your production environment and your development environment is pretty clear now. And you could have like a third environment like called testing or staging, which is the purpose of it is like testing or getting ready to push it to production. So you could have different environments that each would have like their own database, their own potential gems or libraries, that kind of thing. And
I have a question for you.
yeah, go for it.
So why are we not just connecting this to GitHub?
I just wanted to show you kind of just being weird about it. Not weird, but just showing like this is independent of GitHub.
Okay.
That's the only reason why. Wait, let me get out of here. So yeah, just to really show you, like I do a git remote -v. Like I only had this Heroku remote. So let's actually go through. Let's do add GitHub now, because you're going to have GitHub remote, and like let's kind of talk about that a little. So let's go back to GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository. So this can be Heroku 21. Now I can do a get remote add. So now when I do get remote -v, I have two remotes. I have a Heroku and an origin. So origin is my GitHub repo and Heroku is my Heroku repo. So if I do a get push origin master, that's going to push this code up to GitHub, not to Heroku. And these two are not set up, like they're not connected. You can connect them, you can set it up so when you push to your GitHub master, it will automatically trigger a build in Heroku. Like you can do that kind of setup stuff. But how the flow is going to be, what time is it? Let's talk about the flow of your app really quick, or like development. Actually, I guess we can we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but just like briefly talking about this, let's do like, here's how your flow is going to be with now Heroku set up. I would be on my, like, say I wanted to work on a new feature, I would do like a get pull origin master. So pull from GitHub, check out to a new branch. We'll just call it like feature 1. Go into your code. So let's just go into our, what was it? Nope, I don't want to change this. That. Definitely do not change that. I probably should have done that before I checked a new branch, but this is fine. So I would check to a new branch. Actually, let's do this. Check out master, because I think master was all messed up. Not get status. Okay, fine. It wasn't get checkout F1. So I'm on a new branch. Just go to app 1. So I come in and I do my feature. Yep. Add git commit -m. Then I would push. Push origin, so I'm going to push to GitHub F1. And then, on GitHub, so you would just follow the same kind of steps you've been doing, where you create the pull request. You would merge. I would pull from master. When I wanted to work on a new feature, I just pull from master, get everything that was changed, get that down. Check out, start another feature. So your flow is going to be, the same. Go and add another feature. Commit -m. Do a push to your branch. Just kind of continuing this flow. So all your team members, you'd be working, you'd be creating features, just merging pull requests. Something I should be demoing. Let me just do one more merge request just to show it, because this is important. Check out the master, get pull origin master. Let's do one more branch, get checked out. Feature 3. So we're just adding a whole bunch of branches, a whole bunch of features. So something I should be doing, well, a couple things I should be doing. Like, so before I do my pull request, or my pull request, I should pull from master. And make sure you're like testing your app. Like I have a 500 error. Why do I have a 500 error? Probably because I don't have my server running, but. So for each merge request, or before I do a pull request, it's the same thing. I should pull from master, and then I should check my code. Like check it, make sure it's working. Cool, it's working. Now I can push origin F3, and I can, create that pull request. Push origin F3, is it not there? Oh, it's this branch is up to date. Oh, I don't think I did a get add dot. Test it, create the pull request, merge it. Cool. So, I kind of wanted to, so I've worked on, 3 different features that could be like maybe, each of your team members. You can work on X amount of features and push up, merge to master, or maybe this would also be called your, you can kind of think of maybe now your master on GitHub. If you don't set it up to automatically hook up to Heroku, you can almost start thinking of master as like a staging branch or staging environment, because it's kind of like in between your development and production. It's really not, because it doesn't have its own database, but it kind of is this place where you're like merging code together and getting it ready. So what you might do, or what you might see in a real world environment, or like a real world company, is you're you're pushing to the staging branch, which for now is just master. And you're working on a whole bunch of different features. And then at some point you're going to be like, okay, let's pull from master. Let's get all of those changes, and let's really go through and test this out. Cool. Let's go test feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, because maybe these features have some dependency on each other. So all of these features needed to be done for to make sense for this to go out into the real world. So, but you still worked on them separately, but you do a certain amount of work, get maybe the, this chunk of work done, and test it, make sure it's good to go, really bang on it. And then once you felt secure about that, then you would do a get push master. what do you think you need to do once you push to, like, once you kind of get into the flow, what do you think you probably want to do once you push to production? Starts with a T.
That's it.
Yeah, test it. You don't want to test it, make sure, because sometimes, you know, it's a different environment. You probably go through and just make sure it's working on production. That's where you really want to make sure it's working. So now that's, you know, it's pushed up to Heroku. Now I should be able to go to Heroku, refresh. There we go. Make sure that the change, for some reason, maybe like, and this can happen sometimes, you test stuff and it doesn't break in like your testing, but it breaks in production. So you kind of do want to go through and make sure when you push up to Heroku that you didn't break anything in that environment. Cool. So that's the flow. We'll talk a little more about the flow tomorrow. We'll also we'll also set this up with we'll go through a cloud and area example as well, and then we'll go through an example where we just create a app as an API, get that set up. But are there, I think one thing just to kind of a takeaway from this, I think if you follow this Trello card that I threw out in Slack, you won't, I think it should be pretty straightforward. It's really not that much that you have to do. So actually, like what I want to do is we can like call it good. We can take lunch. But if you want, I'll give you like, because we can meet back at 2, but maybe take like 10, 15 minutes. Grab one of your Rails projects and see if you can get one of your Rails projects up on Heroku. So any Rails project that you have working, maybe one that doesn't have Cloudinary, because we'll talk about, there's some things we need to do. Well, one small thing we need to do for Cloudinary to get that working. But if you want to try taking one of your apps and seeing if you can go through this just to get it set up. But it's pretty much just these steps. And you'll probably have to do just another note because you probably will get this error. That's what you have to do for that. Cool. Sweet. So yeah, let's come back. Let's just call it 2 o'clock and yeah, we'll just go from there. You can start working on your portfolio projects. You can even try pushing up to Heroku if you want today. Sweet, that is it for me. So, and I'll try to push this video up to YouTube like really as quick as I can. So you have that reference too.
Sweet.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll have a good lunch. We'll see you back at 2.
Hey, James, real quick. I was getting an error when I was trying to add Heroku, and I think I probably just need to update my system, but I'll just let you look at it real quick.
Okay.
So it's basically this error, but it says command line tools are outdated. So I can't install Heroku. So it looks like I either just need to install a new Xcode or just do a whole software update.
Was that an error? I saw that on mine. It was just a warning though. Is it an error for you?
It's an error, yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry, I don't know if I actually showed that. Yeah, anyway, it's an actual error.
yeah, let me see. I can't. Okay. Yeah.
Blow this up a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Try. All install force. Yeah, if you want to update every.
I have a software update, so I can just do a software update over the lunch. I just didn't want to do it now because I have to restart my computer and everything. So
Okay. Yeah, try that. That should. I think that should fix it.
okay, that's what I figured. I just thought I'd have you look at it real quick.
I have a question real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So on the Heroku website, like it says install the Heroku CLI, all that stuff. And then at the bottom, it says existing Git repository. And it's just Heroku Git remote -a and then the name of the Heroku app. So is that how you do it if you already have a GitHub made? Or is that just something different?
No, that's something different. You don't need that. Yeah, for that, because the Git, it's not, you don't need a GitHub, but or whether or not you have a GitHub doesn't matter. You could have a GitHub or you could not have a GitHub. Like right now, they're kind of like two separate things. So the Heroku Git clone -a, and then the folder name, that's going to add, it's like the, when you do the git remote add origin in the URL, well, it's like that. It's adding a remote to your project that's named Heroku. So you can do a git push Heroku master, and then that will link it to that project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm getting it. I just, their website is like confusing. I'm just gonna ignore it though. I'm not gonna look at it.
Yeah, so you do have to run that command because that links your project to the actual repo on Heroku.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Cool. Any other questions? All right, have a good lunch.